everyone. Here I am in my studio and feeling very calm after the storm. So I've had a few days of being kind of in turmoil, like a whirlwind going round and round and round, back and forth over old ground. And the same stuff keeps coming up about fears, and I've really connected my fears now with my lower chakras and really suffering physically when I'm feeling anxious and afraid. I really think this is a root chakra issue that I've had for years and years and years and years and years. In fact, it's so unconscious with me, the triggers that I've had, that it's almost happening all the time. And I really want to kind of look at that. And I think one of the things that helps me to deal with the pain and the issue that I have, like physically, because obviously it's affecting my health. It affects my mental health as well, because if you feel in pain all the time, you kind of end up being you're not your normal self, your normal happy self when you can do the things that you love. So I've kind of been looking at that, and one of the main things that I noticed that really seems to get straight to the point of helping me deal with that physical issue is by going inside and forgiving everything. Forgiveness is one of the most amazing tools that you can ever have, and I think forgiveness is such a big thing for me. There's many things that I feel that I blame because of my own lack of self-love. So if I can forgive myself, and I can forgive the people who I think are to blame for the things that have happened to me, everything seems to kind of be released and lift, and I'm a lighter human being. I'm a lighter body moving around in space, and I feel so much stronger than I used to feel about this, even though I'm still suffering. I'm obviously creating, manifesting things from the past. I obviously keep repeating some kind of pattern that's creating these physical symptoms, but I feel so much stronger since really knowing and understanding within myself that we don't have to repeat old patterns of behaviour. We don't have to have a contract. We don't have to be here to release our karma, we're creating karma all the time. Karma is like the consequence of an action. So for every action, there's a consequence to it. And we're doing this all the time. So we're constantly, in the present moment, creating new karma. But we don't have to, if we don't live in the past, so if we don't think that past me, that past you is something that is me now, it's really difficult to describe. If we can say that the only person who's present is the me that's now in this present moment, that also releases a lot of karma, because it basically saying that everything that happened to you is kind of irrelevant now. And, you know, because that's not who you are. There is only now, and the way that we release and let go of past hurts, past blame, past kind of things that self-harm, people harming us, the way that we release that is by forgiving. And the person that we most need to forgive is ourselves, because we're all doing this. We're all creating negative karma or negative outcomes that we're then experiencing. And we can kind of disassociate ourselves with that. We can say, well, I don't need that part of myself anymore, because that's not serving me. It's not who I am. And then you don't have to attach yourself to who you think you are, because then that's identification. You just say that I am someone who is love. I am love. I am now. I am in the present moment. And I can release all those old fears. And then you can bring up an event or a time when you, in your mind, now in the present moment, which of course makes it something different. It's not that same thing that happened to you. That's gone. And then you can forgive everything in it. You can give. I mean, this is what I do. This may not be good for everybody, but I certain situations where I feel like I acted in a way that wasn't beneficial to me, I forgive it now. Because if there is no time, then all can be forgiven right now in the present moment, and you can release it all right now as well. We have the power to do that. We just don't think we have. You can release whatever you want to release. You can forgive whatever you want to forgive right now. And everything deserves forgiveness. Everything you've ever done, everything you can get. You can be in a state of forgiveness all the time, constantly creating a wave of forgiveness that goes through all the time. I forgive everything. I forgive, and you can. Because when I say sometimes it's not meaningful to me, but so I have to sometimes maybe picture things in my head or have feelings inside of me that relate to what it is that I want to forgive, because otherwise it's just kind of words, isn't it? It's not really meaningful. I know words are a lot more meaningful to some people than others, but I think the pictures that you have in your mind and the feelings that they create is more aligned with God and what you really are. And when you can bring these into your consciousness, this can really help with forgiveness, because you want to get the actual feeling. You want to get right to the bottom, the root of that original feeling that is making you create this pattern of fear, this lack of love in certain parts of yourself, because you can't forgive yourself. You can't forgive that part of you that let whatever it was happen to you, or you can't forgive that person for doing that thing to you. You know, that person, whether that person did something to you that harmed you, or you did something to that person that harmed them, it's the same. It's the same, because we're all doing all these energies all the time to each other without even realizing a lot of the time. And you know, if you've been through a particularly traumatic thing, it's very hard to imagine how it feels to be in that person's shoes. But I can tell you can do it, because you go into meditation and you can put yourself in a situation where you feel like, where you have done something that you feel really bad about, where you remember that you've harmed someone in a way, and you can remember that feeling that you got when you did that. It might have been intentional, it might have made you feel good to do it, you might have been aware that you were doing it, you might not have been aware that you were doing it, but you remember the response that you got. You remember that that person was harmed. You remember these things, and it stays inside you, and unless you find your key and unlock it, it stays there, and it affects all the cells of your body. It affects you from head to toe, and you're living in it. It's almost like you're living in that negative energy. So you can meditate, and you don't even have to meditate. You can just, if you feel like you need to forgive yourself, or you feel like someone is affecting you, how you're living your day-to-day life, and they're coming into your awareness a lot of the time, and it doesn't feel good, and you're aware of that, you can look at that thing, and you can say to yourself, that person can't harm me because I am love. And you can make that person, in your mind's eye, you can say, that person can't harm me because I am love. And we all are love. And we all, whether intentionally or not, do not mean to cause ourselves harm. And there's a lot of people who think that when they're causing harm and chaos, and they're operating from the dark side of themselves, they don't think that that is something that is going to affect them. They see that they're doing something to someone else. Revenge is like this. When someone takes revenge, they think, oh good, you know, I've upset that person like that person upset me. And we need to talk about these things, because people, I mean, I know I'm feeling it in my head. I know I'm thinking these things in my head. And I know that if I'm thinking these things in my head, and I'm quite a conscious and aware person, then other people are thinking them too. So even if you're an aware person, it's still possible for you to momentarily lower your vibration and go into an old ego state where you're thinking that you can get away with stuff, or that you can take revenge, and some part of you for some reason feels good about doing that, and that is kind of like a prize from the ego. But it's not love, it's not self-love, because ultimately you're living in judgment, you're living in fear, you're living in hatred, and these vibrations are affecting you as a person. And when you live in these vibrations, whether you're aware of it or not, they're actually causing harm to you. They're causing harm to your thoughts and your thinking, and the way that your thinking makes you operate as a person, where you're operating from. You're not operating from love, you're operating from fear. And fear causes hatred, and fear causes you to take revenge. So you can forgive that part of yourself, look inside of yourself. You're going to find an example somewhere of where you hurt someone really badly. whether you're aware of it or not. You can look at that part and you can love it, and you can say that I didn't know. I'm innocent. I didn't know what it was doing to me. I didn't know. I was unaware of what I was doing to myself. This is really important, because people who take revenge don't think they're harming themselves. They're not aware of what it's doing to them. They think it's harming the other person, but if it's harming that person, it's harming them, because everything affects everything. This is what karma is. It's the result of thinking in a certain way and then making something happen, and then something is manifested, and then the outcome of that affects something else, and everything is bouncing off each other. And we can when we're really in a state of love, and we're really forgiving ourselves, we don't need to believe that we have a purpose here, and the purpose is to release karma, and the purpose is to do this and to do that that's beneficial for us. We don't need to because that in itself is a fear. That's an attachment to something that you think you should do, and there is nothing you need to do. You can live in a state of love and forgiveness all your life, and it's possible. I really believe it's possible. I really believe there are people doing it right now as we speak, or as I speak to you. So just getting back to forgiveness. Forgiveness is a state of being as well, because it's a realization that everything is innocent. So even the worst possible people in the world who we blame, and we say, well, that's their fault, they created that, that's and then look what happened, all these things happened from it, and then we're all creating karma, we're all creating outcomes, we're all creating consequences to our actions, and that energy is what's creating people who we blame coming into power and making our lives a misery, or so we think. But we're all responsible in our own lives. It's not just the person who's doing these things that you don't like, that you think they're doing to you or us or collectively. We all have a kind of opinion on what whether that's a bad person or not, or these things are creating our lives, and this kind of thinking is creating our life. So if we turn our attention again back towards ourselves and forgive everything. To live in a state of forgiveness is to see everything as innocent. It's to see everything in the light without judgment. It's to look at everything as if it's a baby and it doesn't know what it's doing, doesn't know that it's causing harm. It doesn't know it. So we need to forgive it and love it, no matter what it's doing. Because loving it releases it. It says that you're not attached to it anymore, and it's not a part of your thinking to blame that person or to blame that circumstance or situation as something being out of your control that's outside of you. It's basically doing all that. Every time you forgive, it's letting everything go, so that you're functioning from a completely different space. you're coming from a space where everything is free flowing, spontaneous, love, joy, where you have knowledge of your power, your self-worth, your self-love. To be in a state of forgiveness is basically is going to be part of our evolution, I think. Because I can't see how, if we don't forgive ourselves, if we don't get in touch with the fact that it's us inside, it's creating all of this, the stuff that we don't like, we're never going to move on. We're going to be stuck coming back here, incarnation after incarnation, coming back, repeating. It's already happening. It's already happening that people are forgiving. They're forgiving what's the outcomes that have come up now from the past. So the way that we've been thinking in the past that is in living in fear has created certain outcomes that we don't like, and then now we're angry with that. We're angry with what we've created, and on a universal general level, this is what's happening in the world, but it's also happening on a very personal level as well. If you can see yourself as being a small part of the whole, in terms of the outcomes that are being created, that sometimes works. So what you're thinking in your head is creating everything that's happening out there as well. So everything that other people are thinking, everything that, if you're a bright enough light, you can affect everything and everyone. I think there's many people doing this now. I really do. Many people are beginning to realise that everything, absolutely everything, comes from them. There is nothing outside of that. It's a difficult concept for us to grasp, and many people will not see that. They may follow things that they may follow people who are practicing mindfulness and going in and doing self-healing, and they may follow these people. They may think that they're really good and the things that they say are really good, but they might not be doing it in their own lives. And I think this is the difference. I think when you turn your attention to yourself, this is where everything changes. There's no going back after that. Anyway, this is supposed to be a talk about forgiveness, and I forgive you, and I hope you forgive me for going on for too long. And I'm just going to sit here for 10 seconds and breathe in and out. Be grateful. Forgive everything. I am light. I am love. I am all that is and all that will ever be. And I rest here in peace and forgiveness of everyone and everything in my life, everything that's been done that I look at to the outside world and think, I don't like that, I don't agree with that, that's wrong. I forgive it. And as I forgive more and more and rest in the peace and innocence of everything, I realise who I am.